welcome back to the channel. It is Sarah Lynn, or Frilled Criminal, whichever you prefer, and today's topic is something that I've had on my mind for a while but haven't spoken much about outside of one mention in my last video. I want to talk about how Lolita has shifted from a slow-built kind of style to something very similar to the fast fashion trends we see on social media. Let's talk about this. And before we begin, you guys know the drill. I'm looking down at my monitor. I have terrible short-term memory. I can't remember things. So let's start out how we typically do in these types of videos. What is Lolita fashion at its core? As many people know, Lolita fashion is a relatively niche fashion not often seen in the West outside of group meetups and online community circles, and it is rather expensive compared to other Western and Eastern fashions. It is not cosplay, and it is not a performance act being put together for others' entertainment. It is a street fashion with a rich cultural background in Japan. Originally, Lolita started as a more DIY kind of subculture back in the 70s, and more recently became what it is today with all of the bright pastel colors and cute prints that are very popular right now at this moment in time. Around the very late 2000s and early 2010s was when EGL could be bought from overseas without the huge hassle that was shopping services, limited information on releases, and unexpected import fees. Baby the Star Shine Bright opened in San Francisco in August 2009, and Angelic Pretty followed very closely behind in November of 2010, also based in San Francisco. There was also a very short-lived Baby the Star Shine Bright store in New York that opened in 2014, but unfortunately closed in 2018. I am so sorry to my East Coast girlies. Anywho, these stores focus primarily, if not pretty exclusively, on Lolita fashion and brought its permanent presence to the United States, as well as presenting EGL to more people here than ever before. Back when these brands first appeared here, Lolita was very much a luxury fashion that you had to save up to buy, and was a lot more intentional. You didn't just buy AP because it's AP, like you do now. You would have to plan what you wanted to buy months in advance. Again, it was intentional wardrobe building. Planning, deal hunting, and extensive knowledge about brands in this era were key to getting a nice and cohesive closet. It wasn't very common to be buying every new AP release directly from the store. Actually, this was looked down upon to a degree, and you would be labeled a brand. But this culture of slow-built wardrobes has shifted yet again, just as the DIY nature shifted into buying Brando around the mid to late 2000s. Long story short, this was not a fashion you could buy in bulk at the time it first became popular, which is very different to Lolita, current day 2026. From very well designed, thoughtfully constructed dresses in 2012 to the weird dusty pink polyester sack dresses they keep releasing for some reason, surely you've noticed the shift too. Why is it that now there is this big push to be purchasing way more clothes than we actually need and can realistically wear? So, as I mentioned a moment ago, Lolita fashion was very difficult to get your hands on in the late 2000s and early 2010s, since the pieces themselves were expensive, hard to get in the Western comm due to lack of shopping services and international shipping from the brands themselves, and the brand photos were like 3 pixels wide, making it difficult to see what the dress actually looked like. While the pieces were very hard to come by, they were most definitely worth it. Most dresses were very well constructed, made of cotton or a poly blend, and typically were all similar colors, so using accessories that weren't from the same collection was pretty easy and nearly seamless. You can see this in a lot of early 2010s street snaps and photos posted to EGL blogs online. These pieces were crafted with care in factories in Japan that were ethical as far as we know. Yes, the price was high for the time period. We were in a recession around the time it became popular, but these prices were more than justified when you realize that everyone in the dressmaking process was compensated fairly and no one was taken advantage of. Again, as far as we know, and also excluding Bodyline, they have always manufactured in China, as far as I know. I made a video on them, I should know this. I actually own pieces from pre-2014, and they are incredibly durable and well built. I actually owned a piece from 2005, and it was basically brand new aside from some stretched out neck shearing from improper storage. My Pup in a Cup one piece and skirt, both from 2008, were owned by multiple people and with proper care are in very good condition. The fabric itself is still very crisp. It feels like it's still starched from the factory. Those pieces are nearly 18 years old. They can almost vote. and join the military. That is the kind of quality I am referring to in this video. And of course, owning a lot of these pieces kind of gave you status in the column at the time, but flaunting them and how many times you've been to Japan was generally looked down upon. Again, as I mentioned earlier, you would be considered a brand whore and not in like the funny, cutesy, sarcastic way we use it today. The community was very tight-knit at the time. Sales were typically done on EGL LiveJournal, pre-Lace Market, and most Lolitas had a very small but very cohesive wardrobe. Coordinating the same dress multiple times with different accessories, hairstyles, and makeup was the norm. It wasn't about how many dresses you had, but rather how many coordinates you had, if that makes sense. It was, and to me it still is, very impressive looking at these coordinates on these abandoned blogs that are the same dress but with entirely different vibes and entirely different color schemes each time. From what I can see online in preserved media, creativity was the best trait to have, and it definitely shows in the amount of interaction these elder Lolitas had at the time. Unfortunately, however, the last post on EGL LiveJournal was in 2024. I think it is safe to say that EGL LiveJournal is gone. Social media like TikTok and Instagram took not only the Lolita community by storm, but the entire world. It's pretty uncommon now to see people using sites like Blogger to show off their yearly wardrobe updates. Rather, it's done on Instagram by either posting collages on your feed or keeping a highlight on your profile of your current pieces in your wardrobe. Sales are now typically done on your story on Instagram or TikTok before listing it to Lace Market to give your followers a better chance. It's a very big shift away from the culture on LiveJournal. Not to mention that the only way to be seen and interacted with on these apps is to post every day at the same time with new and fresh content. Nothing too similar to previous videos. You need to teeter very carefully on the line between entertaining enough and too enthusiastic or annoying. The algorithm on social media rewards fast-paced short-form content that typically focuses on overconsumption. Think about this. How many videos of people opening Labubus or those Skull Panda My Little Pony blind boxes have you seen? Hauls of clothing, so much so that there is no possible way that they're gonna wear it all or even store it. Content like this is very easy to produce in 2026. And little fun fact, if you have over 10K on TikTok, you will start getting access to brand deals. The brand will reach out to you through the brand deals tab, and you can either accept or decline the offer, and if they decide to go through with it, you will get sent products to review or money off in order to promote the product. It is extremely streamlined now and accessible to, honestly, a lot of people on the platform. Sometimes the ad is also undisclosed, which is illegal, but that is neither here nor there, and it is not what I'm here to talk about. This content is very easy to make and has a high interaction and view rates. With Lolita especially, it is expensive to buy current day due to tariffs and the like. So if a brand reaches out to send you a dress for free in exchange for a review, why wouldn't you make the video? In 2026, fashion hauls are practically everywhere, and of course that has also bled into the EGL community as well. And to clarify, there's nothing inherently wrong with showing off some dresses you may have bought. I've done this before myself, and it's honestly really cool to show people in the comm dresses they may have never seen up close before, or seeing the texture, or even really seen like a good picture of, because, you know, bodyline pictures and old school baby pictures and stuff. Hauls, unboxings, what I bought this month kind of content, they can be fun and they can be helpful like I mentioned previously, but the issue isn't necessarily with the content itself, it's more so the scale and the frequency that this is occurring and being posted. When what I bought this month happens every month on the dot and has multiple expensive main pieces, it starts to shift how the fashion is presented to not only the people in the community, but those looking to join and outsiders looking in. It also starts a cycle or a content loop. Unfortunately, like I mentioned earlier and in my last video, newness and a constant stream of fresh content is basically the only thing that performs well. A brand new dress from a new release, especially popular Bloodbath-esque releases, will always get more attention than a coordinate built from pieces you already own and have posted before. And that's what creates the loop. Buy multiple expensive or rare pieces, post a haul, get very high engagement, earn money off of the views, rinse and repeat. After hauls began gaining popularity in normie fashion circles, I hate using that word, Lolita began getting pulled into that cycle as well. New releases became little more than content. Content becomes income and or attention, and that gain of attention or monetization incentivizes even more consumption. It's not that hauls are a new type of content, it's that they've become one of the only ways that this fashion is showcased online. And when that becomes the only way for visibility on social media, it, again, subtly changes what people think is important in EGL. It starts to feel less like a fashion built on coordination, personal style, patience, planning, budgeting, and more like a reflection of how much you can acquire of the rarest and most expensive pieces. Not because everyone is doing this, but because it is what gets seen at the end of the day. When we look at our own statistics on social media about our post performance, pictures of coordinates get a lot less attention than, say, a fast 30-second video showcasing 3 sought-after new releases from AP. This is not uncommon or unknown information. We've all seen it and have been affected by it in some way or another. I'm so sorry for mentioning this so much, but in my previous video regarding spoon feeding, I talked about how that typically gets rewarded on these platforms. Very fast-paced short videos that feed into the need to buy multiple main pieces every month, which is unobtainable by most people, especially right now. In my opinion, it's a little bit deceptive and unfair to give the impression to those new or somewhat established in the community that this is a normal amount of consumption. That in EGL, it's normal to eat nothing but ramen until your next paycheck because you blew your entire previous one on triple M dresses. We'll come back to this. I also want to say that there is definitely a significant signaling of wealthiness and status as a rich and well-off kind of aspect to it as well. That's neither here nor there, and that is not what we are talking about right now. I just thought it would be important to mention. Mixing a slow building fashion with the trends we see on social media with regular fashion here in the West has been very detrimental to the health of the community as a whole. This affects everyone. Every post has to be a brand new item being shown off enthusiastically in order to be seen anyone outside of your regular follower base. To clarify, I do not think that this is the only way to get engagement. There are other ways, of course, and the algorithm is mysterious when it picks what videos get pushed out, so it's never a 100% guarantee that posting a haul of new AP dresses will get you instant views and follows. I'm just saying that a lot of the time, these videos are the only thing I'm seeing from the EGL community on my For You page. It's very strange to me that there's been this huge, culture overhaul in the online community because of these trends and the rush to have every new dress upon release day. With this shift in the expectations of what being a Lolita actually is, it becomes increasingly emphasized to newcomers that you need to have a massive wardrobe in order to participate in discussions and to be seen online. This is a far cry from what Lolita originated as in Japan and what it became in the West during the early days of the fashion. Instead of slowly building a wardrobe over time like in the early years, there's now this subtle pressure to prove yourself quickly, that you are real and interesting and established Lolita through what you own, rather your experience and how you can court. This typically looks like prioritizing new pieces, trying to keep up with releases, and feeling like you need to constantly show something new in order to be seen as valid. And the problem with that mindset is it doesn't come from love for the fashion, styling, or even personal expression. It comes from the comparison to those with larger wardrobes and more expensive pieces. From the feeling that everyone else has more, they're getting more, and they are just somehow always ahead of you. So the barrier to entry from EGL stops being just the price. It starts to kind of become the pace that you buy. It's a trap, buying every popular release you can, even when you don't really even like it that much, just to say that you have it. I said this earlier, but this is not really a healthy way to engage with this fashion, or any fashion really, especially something like Lolita. This community has shifted away from saving up for pieces you really love and adore and towards a constant race to keep up. Lolita's expensive. This isn't new information. Newer dresses from major Japanese brands typically retail for above 300 USD upon release, not including tariffs and such. Yet we see creators online buying pieces the day they drop. And there are plenty of memes online of being broke after new dress drops or eating instant ramen for a month so you can afford a new AP release. It's become common to drop a lot of money on a dream dress without considering how you're paying for necessities the following week. And this is harmful to present online as the norm in our fashion. Hey baby. Hi. What's up? Oh, you want to come here? Come here. Come on. It's okay. Come here. Come here. There you go. More creators creators, then you realize, may be in debt to upkeep this constant flow of content, even if it isn't really spoken about directly or openly. Whether to family, friends, or a loan service, it's more common than it appears online. Credit card debt in the US averages around several $1,000s, with people in my age group typically carrying around a few $1,000s in debt. That doesn't even include the buy now, pay later trap people find themselves in. Side note, why can't I do a pay in 4 plan on DoorDash? Credit cards are, of course, used for other expenses as well, especially in our current economy. But you would be surprised how many younger adults treat their use of them very casually because it doesn't carry the same weight as using your own immediately available funds on your debit card. People who are spending $300 a week on new dresses are not necessarily rich or well off. They might be taking on financial strain to achieve the lifestyle they post online. And it just becomes a never-ending race to show and prove ownership of expensive pieces as a status symbol rather than engaging with the fashion itself. Lolita brands and the wider fashion community aren't excluded from this culture of constant overconsumption. When there is a huge demand for frequent releases and constant novelty, the fashion itself tends to reflect that cycle. Over time, this can lead to feeling that not every release is designed to be like a long-term, culturally defining piece. Some items exist more as a in-between filler release, while Lolitas wait for the bigger, more anticipated releases of the season. Think about the millionth Misty Sky release coming out soon, with the ever-building excitement for the new pony bag that was announced late last year. And whether intentional or not, that reinforces the same cycle I mentioned that is seen online. Constant newness, constant attention, and constant turnover. As a result, pieces can start to feel less like something you build a permanent, meaningful, and cohesive wardrobe around, and more like something to create content with, something to be posted, seen, and then quickly sold afterwards on the Lace Market. This has a cultural impact, we can't deny that. We are losing the art of slow wardrobe building, the emotional attachment to individual pieces, and the creativity that blossoms from courting your pieces differently each wear. Instead, our fashion is becoming increasingly tied to the gross overconsumption of clothing. It is only slightly different from the hauls from certain companies that I won't name that are popular online for their cheap prices. And unfortunately, when everything is new, nothing feels special anymore. It's all the same boring pieces that you can't even remember the name of half the time. I briefly want to mention something important regarding the production transparency of Japanese brands. To meet the demand and keep prices relatively stable, the Japanese staple brands for EGL have moved their manufacturing outside of Japan. This is no secret. In recent years, there has been very limited public information or transparency of the manufacturing process for major brands, meaning it is kind of unclear where and under what conditions these pieces are being produced. To clarify, I just want to make sure this is very clear. This is not to make any direct claims about unethical labor practices, but rather to note that as consumers, we typically don't have clear visibility into the full production process behind the clothing we buy, unlike how it was in the late 2000s and 2010s when Lolita became popular here in the West and brands occasionally posted little factory tours. There is now a growing gap between how these items are presented in-store and online and how they are actually made. I wanted to mention this because I think it's worth being more mindful of that gap when you're buying new pieces, and to think about it in terms of ethicalness and morals. To clarify my stance, I don't think hauls are inherently harmful to EGL. I honestly do not care how people spend their money. I don't think it's something that really needs to be policed. You come back up. You staring at me like you want to. You want to come here? Come here. Oh, hi, baby. I don't really care how people choose to spend their money, and I don't think that's something that needs to be policed, especially by strangers on the internet. This topic, is very loaded and nuanced. What counts as too much or what is good for the community can't be clearly defined. There are creators who share accessibility and sizing information to help others decide whether a piece will work for them and their individual needs, and that's genuinely helpful. And then there's creators who review new Baby the Stars Shine Bright jumper skirts to discuss the quality of the printing construction, which is also valuable, especially for media preservation purposes. I'm a very big proponent of media preservation. It's difficult to define a definitive and clear solution to this issue since it's incredibly nuanced, as I mentioned, and you can't really tell people to stop posting what they want on their own pages, and that isn't really my intention anyway. This is not about putting blame on individuals who do this type of content. It's more about questioning what gets rewarded and amplified online and why. More importantly, how that shapes the community as a whole. To summarize, Lolita hasn't changed at its core. It still shares similarities with Lolita, say, in 2006. What has changed the most is how it is presented online. LiveJournal is essentially 6 feet under, and photos posted on sites like Instagram are often overshadowed by short videos showcasing hauls of new releases from JP brands. It has become sort of a race to present the most expensive pieces through unboxings and comparisons of yourself to others. It's a cycle with no clear endpoint or real value for the community. From this, Japanese brands have shifted away from slower, highly curated seasonal collections towards a system with more frequent, less hyped pieces that are between very highly anticipated designs. As I've said, Lolita is fundamentally still the same fashion it was in the 2000s, but the way its core values are presented online currently have shifted way deeper into online spaces. With the Lolita tag on social media being blocked, which, by the way, don't get me started on that, it's become increasingly more difficult to find community members and even harder to find those who care about the values of being a Lolita. Lolita has not lost its values. It's just harder to find them online now than before. So I wrote this script very quickly and I actually finished it today. I started from the beginning of section 3 all the way to section 10. I wrote this entire script in 2 hours. I did a lot of research and I hope this was clear and concise. I want you guys to know that I'm not trying to put blame on anyone. It's just observations I've made and I wanted to talk about this because it is something that I've noticed. Lolita has shifted to more so like haul culture, and it's odd, in my opinion, for a fashion that was originally started with slow building and planning excessively for buying pieces you love into a fashion where you buy load of clothes and review them online. I'm sorry if I don't sound clear or I speak clear. I have not been sleeping very well the past couple nights. And I also apologize if you guys have heard like some thunder in the background. It is storming right now. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the channel. I would love to hear your opinions. Please leave those down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have a nice day. Stay safe if you are in this thunderstorm. It's been crazy. And yeah, bye!